Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we're tackling a huge question, one that a massive 5-year study set out to answer. What really separates a truly great company from one that's just, good? And really, it all kicks off with this one simple but powerful idea. It's the reason so very few things ever become truly great. Think about it. We don't have great schools, mainly because we have good schools. Most people don't live great lives because it's just so easy to settle for a good life. It's this simple acceptance of good enough that actually stands in the way of greatness. So that was the big question, right? Can a good company actually become a great company? And if it can, how the heck do they do it? This question launched this enormous research project. A team literally spent over 10.5 person years digging through mountains of data to crack the code and find out what it really takes. And get this, the results were absolutely staggering. The companies that made that leap from good to great, they averaged cumulative stock returns 6.9 times the general market in the 15 years after they transformed. I mean, to put that into perspective, a superstar company like General Electric only outperformed the market by 2.8 times over that same period. This wasn't just a little bit better, it was a total game changer. Okay, let's dive into how they did it. All right, so the very first big discovery on this whole quest was all about the leaders. And man, it just flew in the face of everything we thought we knew. The researchers were expecting to find these big, famous, celebrity-type CEOs, but what they found was the exact opposite.
It turns out every single one of these good-to-great companies was led by what the study called a level 5 leader. These were not the larger-than-life personalities you see plastered on magazine covers. Nope. They were quiet, self-effacing, even shy people who had this paradoxical mix of deep personal humility and an absolutely ferocious, unstoppable professional will.
Okay, let me tell you about a guy named Darwin Smith from Kimberly-Clark. This is a perfect example, a mild-mannered in-house lawyer who becomes CEO. Just 2 months into the job, a doctor tells him he has cancer and less than a year to live. He calmly told the board he wasn't dead yet, and then he unleashed this incredible resolve. He made the single gutsiest decision in the company's history, selling its main business to go head-to-head with giants like Procter & Gamble. And that 1 year to live, he lived for another 25, 20 of them as CEO. That's level 5.
Now, what's almost as fascinating is what the researchers didn't find. The things they totally expected to see, but were just not there. Technology was never the cause of a company's greatness, just something that accelerated it once it was already on its way. And there were no big, flashy launch events or grand programs. This really busts a ton of myths about what actually drives greatness. Okay, so the next major finding was just as counterintuitive as the first one. The great leaders didn't start by saying, here's our new vision, here's our new strategy. Nope, they started with people. It wasn't about figuring out where to drive the bus first, it was about getting the right people on the bus.
So here's the deal. The good to great leaders first obsessed over getting the right people on the bus, and just as importantly, getting the wrong people off the bus. And then they got the right people into the right seats. Only after all that was done did they figure out where to drive the thing. And the logic is brilliant. If people are on your bus because they like the destination, what happens when you need to change direction? They might get off. But if they're on the bus because of who else is on it, well, changing direction is a whole lot easier.
And this is a world away from the other model, right? The genius with 1,000 helpers model. You've probably seen this. It's one brilliant person who builds a company that's basically a platform for their own talent. It works for a while. But what happens when the genius leaves? The whole thing often just falls apart because the helpers don't know what to do. The first two approach builds something that can last.
And see, this first two idea perfectly explains why executive pay wasn't the big deal everyone thinks it is. The logic is so simple. If you've got the right people on the bus, they're already self-motivated. They have this internal drive to build something great, and they just can't imagine doing anything less. The fancy compensation system doesn't create that drive. It just has to be fair enough not to drive them away.
All right, so you've got your level 5 leader. You've got the right people on the bus. What's next? Well, the next step was all about finding a simple, incredibly powerful concept to guide every single decision. They called it the Hedgehog Concept.
This whole idea comes from this great little ancient Greek parable. You've got the fox, who's cunning and knows lots of little things, and he's always coming up with these complex schemes. And then you've got the simple hedgehog. He only knows one big thing, how to defend himself. And in that one simple, powerful idea lies his strength. The good to great companies, they were all hedgehogs. They found their one big thing. So a hedgehog concept isn't just some goal you write down or a fancy strategy. It's this deep, almost profound understanding that you find right at the intersection of these three circles. And getting there means being brutally honest with yourself about what you really can be the best in the world at, and, just as important, what you can't be.
And Walgreens is just the perfect example of this in action. They realized they could be the absolute best in the world at one thing: convenient drugstores. The real aha moment, though, was their economic engine. They shifted their thinking from profit per store to profit per customer visit. That simple change completely transformed their strategy, leading them to build these clusters of super convenient stores that drove incredible profits across the whole system. So we've got the leader, the people, the big idea. But how did these companies actually do it? How do they make it happen? Well, the final piece of this puzzle is not some big dramatic revolution. It's something way more powerful and way more deliberate.
And this part is absolutely critical to understand. From the outside looking in, these transformations often look like some kind of overnight success. You know, the media would finally catch on and write a big story about this amazing company that came out of nowhere. But for the people on the inside, it felt completely different. It felt like a slow, organic, step-by-step process.
I want you to picture this. You're in front of a giant, heavy flywheel. Maybe it's 30 feet in diameter and weighs 5,000 pounds. Your job is to get it spinning. Your first push barely moves it an inch. You keep pushing. After a couple of hours of hard work, you finally get one full rotation. You keep pushing. It moves a little faster now. 2 rotations, then 4, then 8. Each push you make adds to the momentum of all the pushes that came before it, until at some point, breakthrough. The momentum of the wheel is now working for you.
Now, on the flip side, the other companies, well, they were stuck in what the researchers called the doom loop. They'd get bad results, and without really understanding why, they'd react. They'd bring in a new leader, start a new program, jump on the latest fad. They were always trying to skip that slow buildup and jump straight to the breakthrough. And when it inevitably failed, they'd thrash around and lurch in a new direction, never, ever building that unstoppable momentum.
Circuit City is a textbook example of this flywheel in action. Their overnight success was really more than a decade in the making. It was a slow, deliberate process of pushing that flywheel one turn at a time. After 9 years of consistent effort and refinement, they finally had enough momentum to bet the entire company on their new superstore model. And that's when the breakthrough happened.
So when you put it all together, you see how these ideas aren't just a random collection of good habits. They lock together into this really coherent framework. It all starts with disciplined people led by a level 5 leader. Then comes disciplined thought, where they confront reality to find their hedgehog concept. And finally, they take disciplined action, creating a culture that just relentlessly pushes that flywheel turn after turn, building that unstoppable momentum.
And that brings us to the final, really powerful question that this whole study leaves us with. What the research suggests is that staying good, with all that lurching and reacting of the doom loop, is actually more exhausting than the focused, disciplined push for greatness. The energy you pour into that flywheel eventually comes back to you in the form of momentum. So the real question isn't why you should aim for greatness, but how. And now, you've got the map.